I'm here. My name's Sean Hewitt. This is my colleague and associate, Mr. Sid Smith. He's not putting on any airs because he's moved to a house, as you can see in the background, on Rue Morgue Avenue. And this week, I've moved my podule just down the road at the Black Horse Hotel on Armageddon Street. That's a couple of Bob Dylan street name references for you, ladies and gentlemen. And I know Sid's thrilled at those. Today is episode 35 of our Odyssey, Idiot Wind, blustering our way through the magnificent Dylan Vinyl Definitive Collection. And episode 35 sees us reaching a strange outpost on the road. It's the 2009 album. This is 2009 we're in. Together Through Life. An album with a strange history. And I'll be going into that. And Sid's already smiling in anticipation at, again, a brilliant magazine. Cover on there, full of facts. I don't know where they've got that picture from. It's Bob lighting a cigarette. Let's have a look at the album cover, see if we can spot where that's from. I don't remember seeing that picture anywhere. Oh, hang on. There it is. There's the picture. Look, it's a picture I've not seen before. That's the snapshot they've chosen from the copious photographic Dylan archives. And inside, we've got the usual amazing array of facts about this album. Right, that's the magazine reviewed, I think, Sid. 2009. What's happened since we last spoke? Well, last time we were here, we were reviewing Modern Times, which was 2003. So it's 6 years gone by. There's been several things happen. The bootleg series has been going on apace, as they say. In, 2004, the year after Modern Times, Bob released this double album, which is an old performance with Bob at the Philharmonic Hall in New York. And this is a great performance, really, even though it's got Joan Baez on several tracks. Assaulting your eardrums on there, so that's a good one. And then a very famous one then in this album. This was a Martin Scorsese film about the early years of Bob. This is No Direction Home, a kind of, not a soundtrack as such, a companion, 2 discs of Dylan's early years, culminating in the shit show that was the 1966 tour. For Bob, it was a shit show. And, we'll be coming to that in a few episodes' time. And then, for fans of the Le Noir years, Volume 8, another double album, and most editions, was Telltale Signs. This is one of the very best bootleg series. It's full of great alternative versions and songs that didn't end up on the albums at all. So you get several takes of Mississippi. You get a version of Someday Baby from Modern Times, which is not just infinitely better than the version on Modern Times, but is so different, it's basically a different song, but it's got the same words. It's just an amazing atmospheric track on here, but not on the actual record. There's Born in Time, the song that appeared on Bob's album Under the Red Sky. This is the version that was recorded by Lenoir for Oh Mercy, and is better than the version on the album in every conceivable way. There's a Series of Dreams, of course, Girl on the Greenbrier Shore, and also songs he made in between all those albums. Some real gems on that. And then you spend £100, you get a very short extra disc, which I've got a dodgy copy of in my hand here. Right, let's get on to Together Through Life. Well, what was all that about? Why was the gap so long? And why was Bob in the studio again? Had he got a burning artistic mission to tell us something new? Well, the answer to that question, I won't keep you in suspense. The answer to that question is no, he bloody well hadn't. He was asked to write a song for a film. And the film was called My Own Love Song. And it was by the director whose name I've memorized and now completely forgotten, Sid. And I'm desperately looking up now on here. He was the director of La Vie en Rose, the film that starred Marion Cotillard and made her a star as Edith Piaf. And he got a lot of fantastic attention for that film, and that she won loads of awards. And I don't know what that was. And it was basically, he was interested in that film, Bob, and he also loved the guy's earlier work. And I'm just terribly looking for this now. His name. I've got his name's Olivier something. Anyway, he made this film, and it was his first English language film with American actors. So it had got quite big names in it. Renée Zellweger was in the film. Forrest Whitaker and Nick Nolte were in the film. And the film was released in 2009, the same year as Together Through Life, to absolutely incredibly poor reviews. You're talking like one and a half star out of 5-star reviews. And for years, I've thought that the reason Dylan went into the studio, this is my old copy of the CD, promotional copy. It arrived in the office at work, which I got. And I've also got this copy, an expanded version, which I bought much later. It's not one of my favourite albums, this. I'll throw that up front. The reason this is an interesting thing in the slipcase is you get all kinds of swag. You get a fantastic Together Through Life sticker, which I've never stuck to anything. You get this, the Roy Silver interview. This is a DVD, quite a short interview. That's him. And when I first saw this, Roy Silver looks like he's played by Jeffrey Tambor or somebody in the Larry Sanders Show. He looks like it's a spoof, another Bob fake of a fake, stereotypical showbiz manager.
He looks like Ian Anderson.
He doesn't look that much like Ian Anderson. He looks more like Groucho Marx. But what the lost interview with Roy Silver, what is remarkable about this thing is it's true. This was Bob's manager before the famous Grossman, and he is hilarious in this interview. And he says the best song he ever wrote was "Blown in the Wind," and I let him go for it's about 10 grand. He lets him go to Grossman, and I don't get it. He's a great guy. He's a great boy. He's a great boy, Bobby. He's a great boy. And then that's great. And you also get this much more interesting, I suppose, CD of the theme time radio hour, which is Bob's radio show. And this includes a fantastic track called Neighbours by the Rolling Stones, which Bob says he's glad he doesn't live next door to those boys. They're so noisy. And he also says they include Mick, Keith, Ronnie, Charlie, and a bass player, which is one of the funniest descriptions of them. And you get a poster as well. So there's that. I, for years, have thought he went into the studio to record the film song, which is the second song on the album, a song called Life is Hard. And that is basically true. The idea of constructing this band, which is 3 of his normal band and 3 other people, the musicians on this record are, 3 people from his normal band. Donny Heron, the ever-present Tony Garnier on bass, who is the person who served longest in Dylan's band, and George Rossili. And they're joined by David Hidalgo from Los Lobos on accordion and guitar, and Mike Campbell from the Heartbreakers, Tom Petty's band, on lead guitar. So they went in. This is the story I've learned all these years. They recorded this song, and they carried on recording for about 10 or 12 days, and they came out with an album. Well, that's not entirely true, because the director was sending loads of clips of his film to Bob while they were recording, and he was continually recording music throughout the sessions for the film. So that was taking up at least half of his time. And so there are 16 pieces of music in the film that have never been released. Things like Sweeping the Flood, Bumblebee, Jane's Lament, Joey's Theme, it just goes on. And those have never been released. There's no soundtrack album. The film didn't reach most cinemas after the outrageously poor reviews. It is only available on Amazon in a French language version with French subtitles. So they're pointless, really. I think it's the only place you're ever going to hear this music by Bob. And what is extraordinary is that in the world where everything's on tap, Bob's music on this film is completely unavailable. You can't buy it anywhere officially, unless there's a bootleg hanging around, which I don't know. It's somehow typically Bob. There's basically a whole album of stuff you can't get anywhere. You can't obtain it legitimately in any form. I wish we could hear that music. It's not very important to Bob, obviously, or we would be able to hear it, wouldn't we? But I wish we were able to hear the other stuff he did during these sessions, because there's just a glimmer of hope that some of that stuff could be more interesting than the stuff that's on the actual bloody album. Now, there's a number of problems with this album. One is, apart from one song, I think it's called "The Stream of You," the song. Let's look at the credits. "The Stream of You" is the one that was written by Bob Dylan on his own. And in that sense, it is unique for this project, because every other song on this record, every other original song, features words by Robert Hunter, who we've heard of before. Robert Hunter is the lyricist with the Grateful Dead, and fans of the Grateful Dead speak very highly of him. So I must say that, in fairness, as a preamble to what I'm about to say about him. The thing is, if you've got Leonardo da Vinci painting a big picture for your living room wall, and he has to nip off, he's got another job on, and he's got to get his tea or something, and you think, well, that's good. He's done 7/8 of this picture. Who can I get to finish off the painting? Who can I get to finish off the words the Nobel Prize winner hasn't finished? I'll get Banksy. That's what it seems like to me. And remember, the only previous occasion before this that Robert Hunter has written words for Bob was on the album Down in the Groove. And Down in the Groove is not just, in my opinion, the worst album Bob Dylan ever made. It's among the worst albums anyone has ever made. And there's only 4 original Bob Dylan songs on it, and 2 of them have words by Robert Hunter. And one of those songs is called "The Ugliest Girl in the World." Now, I've heard that song many times, and I've reviewed that album on the air. Me and you, Sid. I can't bring that song to mind. I can't, even when you're listening to it, it's a song that's impossible to remember. It's so absolutely charmless. And the other song on that album is "Sylvia," which is a lot better, but it has a very melodramatic line in it, which I think is the work of Bob, and which enables him to play that song with real venom live. The recorded version is a pale shadow of the live versions. That's true of one of the songs on here, or everything I've just said as well. But for the most part, the words are serviceable, but they're full of cliches and pretty banal. To make the matters worse, and this record, by the way, the sound of this record, it sounds great on vinyl. This is a really nice pressing of this album. However, that's the track listing there. There isn't enough running time to make a double album. So what you get on this record is 2 enormous slabs of 180-gram vinyl, and there's a maximum of about 3 songs on every side. And on the final thing, there's the last 2 tracks. There's just 2 tracks on this side. Those 2 tracks aren't particularly long. They're just 3 or 4 minutes long. It's just, this isn't. If this had been released in the glory days of vinyl, when the vinyl wasn't called vinyls, when LPs weren't called vinyls like they are illiterately now, this would have been on 1 LP. So I think it's a bit stretched on a double album. But the real problem is, I've said the words are banal and forgettable. So is the music. But let's start off with the second track, "Life is Hard," the song he went in to do. I don't think that's a very good song. And not only do I not think it's in the top 25, 35 or 45% of Bob Dylan songs, I don't think it's in the top 25, 35 or 45% of Bob Dylan songs since 1997. And I think this album has its moments. I think "Beyond Here Lies Nothing" is quite a nice opener. It's got a bit of a swagger to it. It's a bit atmospheric. Forgetful Heart is probably my favourite song on this record. Forgetful Heart is most of these songs haven't been played much live. If they'd been played live, they've not hung around in the sets very long, which is itself an indication of something. But Forgetful Heart stayed around longer than most from this album in the set. And again, if you've heard Forgetful Heart live, you probably hear the song with fresh ears, because the versions I've heard live put this in the shadows, the version on here. And that has, again, it might not even be Bob, but it sounds like Bob. And it's just a line that's like the line in Silvio, the one about I'm going to a place where only dead men go. This has got the line. The song's ostensibly about some relationship that's hit the rocks, and as a lot of them are. And it just says, at the end of the song, Bob sings the line, "The door is closed forevermore, if indeed there ever really was a door." And live, that is incredibly, it's melodramatic and over the top, but it's incredibly memorable when he sings that song. The rest of it, This Dream of You, the song he wrote on his own. Shake, Shake Mama, which he actually, in a very unusual move, this man who's a bit light-fingered when it comes to music, it says, all music by Bob Dylan, except My Wife's Hometown, music by Bob Dylan and Willie Dixon. So there's that. And I thought it was Shake, Shake Mama, actually, because that sounds completely fucking lifted to me. But overall, I think this is still the worst album Bob Dylan has made since Time Out of Mind, his big resurgence. It's nowhere near as bad as Knocked Out Loaded or Down in the Groove, obviously. It's serviceable. The band play very well. The band sound like they're having a great time. But it's always something I find disappointing about listening or watching people having a better time than you're having. What do you think of this one?
I'd never heard it before, and my immediate thoughts were, this is a man who's asleep at the wheel. Not only is he asleep at the wheel in terms of the thing he's most revered for, i.e. writing apparently brilliant words. I mean, he's outsourced that for this album as well. And the music just feels completely, kind of just trotted out. There's not, it felt to me, none of this needed to have been said. I agree. Sometimes with music, even by artists that you're not necessarily, that impassioned about, you understand why it's being, why that might mean something to the person. Yeah. It just struck me that this was completely by the numbers, Dylan, more than usual. I mean, most of it's by the numbers, certainly musically, and mostly from my point of view, a lyric. But this is just, it's mired in cliche, musically and lyrically. None of it sounds like any kind of deep insight into the human condition of love and loss. It's just trotting out the bleeding obvious. And the extent to which it could work, perhaps, you could argue, because the band sound all right, but to be honest, it just it sounds like the kind of fat blokes who look like me in a bar playing like their Americana licks. The amount of times in the past when you've gone into actual bars and there's a sort of band at the end of the room playing their version of Americana, and I think actually that's what it reminded me of. And I think there's better bands plying their trade on a wet Wednesday night in Wigan that have more spirit and grit than any of this snoozy dross. These guys are just phoning it in and picking up the check, and that's fair enough. They've got a living to make, and this is them making their living. But if you want something inspired, Americana wise, I don't know. listen to Ry Cooder, or if you want that brusque troubadour sound, listen to JJ Cale. The songs are kind of better, and more importantly, they're shorter. Bob's lost none of his verbosity on this, so yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I kind of
You there?
I hated. I wouldn't say I hated it, but you know, it's poor stuff, and I always get the impression if it was any other artist, this would be just dismissed by all the great and good, you know, the people who lavish praise on Dylan. I don't know what the critical reaction was to this, but I'm assuming.
I don't think it was very
I'm
wildly positive, to be honest. I mean, you know, you're going on about this always like this. I think an album like Time Out of Mind or an album like Love and Theft are considerably more powerful than this record. They've got memorable songs on them, and they've got memorable words.
I accept that if you like Bob Dylan, you're going to find some of those other mediocre albums.
You like Time Out of Mind,
but
yeah.
oh, this is infinitely better than Time Out of Mind. But in some
No,
respects,
it's not. No, it's not. You liked Time Out of Mind.
sorry, no, I got that the wrong way around. Time Out of Mind is infinitely better than this.
Yes, you did.
But that's not saying much, really, from my perspective, about the paucity of musical intention. These are songs that are just they're not worthy of the name of songs. What they are is it's a bunch of chords thrown together because that'll do, and it's kind of and it's just the track that had me sort of rolling. Hang on, I can't remember the names of any of these things. I'll have to look it up. A track like It's All Good.
Oh, that's terrible. It's a terrible song.
Why it takes 5 minutes and 28 seconds of somebody's life to listen to this, when it could have, if this was a JJ Cale song, for example, it would be at best 2 minutes and 11 seconds. I mean, and that's at a push. Similarly, I feel a change coming on. Well, you know, that's great that you feel a change coming on, Bob, but did you have to take that long to bloody, and also the change, whatever the change is, doesn't come on anytime within the song. But there we are. I mean, this record isn't aimed at me. I accept that. But also, interestingly, it doesn't sound like it's aimed at you either. The Bob.
No, I'm sitting here and I'm making a few objective remarks about what you said about the previous records, because I just would defend those records. But I can't really find anything to disagree with you about on what you're saying about this one. I don't think this is a
Come
very
to the dark side. Come to the dark side.
Well, we're back on the light side very soon, you infidel. An infidel. You see, I think this is a very poor record, and I think it's a needless record, unnecessary record.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's just gone in, he's done a few tracks, and the record label want to put out a Bob Dylan album. The director's name is Olivier Dahan, by the way. Olivier Dahan, and he greatly enjoyed working with Bob, and Bob did really instrumental music and a few songs for that film. And the song "Life Is Hard," which I find so tiresome on this record, in the film is sung by Renee Zellweger, amazingly. And I wonder why that's not available. Apparently, she sing all the reviews in the what I think Variety calls it. A heartfelt mess, it calls the film.
Well,
even they say she sings the songs very well. She sings the song "Is Our Land" as well.
I dare say, to the extent that Bob even thinks about this album, I dare say
he thinks about it much.
Somebody somewhere thinks it's a heartfelt mess as well, but I'm not even sure it's heartfelt. I think it's just firmly on the mess side.
You see, if he'd got something heartfelt to say, he would have written it.
Yeah,
He hasn't written any words.
this is just kind of standard songwriting cliche.
Yeah.
If you were going to do a masterclass in bad songwriting or cliched songwriting, this would be, you know, one of the exhibits.
You see, on the previous 2 or 3 albums, I think Modern Times is a weaker album. Not weaker than this. Obviously, nothing's weaker than this in this period. I'm a big fan of the later period Dylan. But you know, a lot of time out of mind, you've got songs like "Not Dark Yet." You've got songs like, you know, "Trying to Get to Heaven." On Love and Theft, you've got "Mississippi," which is a brilliant song. You've got "High Water," which has got an astonishing lyric that's just really mind-boggling in its ambition. And even on Modern Times, you've got "Nettie Moore," which has reduced me to tears on more than one occasion.
Me
Not
too.
for that reason. And "Ain't Talking," which is a very good lyric indeed. There's nothing approaching anything like that, either melodically or crucially lyrically. And I don't see the point of having Bob Dylan write an album of songs if he can't be asked to write any words. What's the point? I mean, it's like having an album with Paul McCartney, which is, yeah, I've not written any melodies, I'll get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Well, what's the fucking point? I mean, it's just, and I just think it's empty.
Yeah.
The album seems empty. They're more interested in having a good time and doing the film, I suspect. I suspect these people are on the film music. I think that's, the more I think about it, I only found out about this hidden music last night. I suspect they're using the studio time that allegedly, I should think Columbia are paying for, to do the film. And they've done a few songs on the side. That's what it sounds like to me. It doesn't sound to me like his focus is on the songs. Because if it was, it'd be better.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your favourite song, Sid?
Oh, I'd struggle to find a favorite song. Maybe no, I really would struggle. I'd have to listen to it again.
Go on then. I'll sit and wait for you to listen to it again. I think it's hard as well. I mean, there's less than a credit card between our opinions on this album. Obviously, it will be either Beyond Here Lies Nothing or Forgetful Heart. And Forgetful Heart is probably my favourite, but that's only because I've heard it live.
Yeah.
And it was so much more convincing than on here. In live, he sang it with complete commitment. And I don't think he sings anything on this record with anything like complete commitment.
Okay. What's next in the definitive vinyl series?
Well, next week, the next episode, I keep saying next week, and it's not next week. It could be ages. But next episode, we're getting into our Bob Dylan time machine, the Batardis, and we're going back. We're now in 2009, as you know, in your special quarters there. We're going back to the year 1963 to a snapshot of Bob on stage live just before he became a star, when he's recorded the Freewheeling Bob Dylan, his second album that made him a songwriting sensation, but before it comes out. And that's Bob Dylan in concert at Brandeis University in 1963.
I can't wait.